everyone. We are joined here today with filmmaker Mickey Keating. You might know Mickey from films like Darling, Psychopaths, and Pod, but he's currently here to chat with us about his new release, which is called Offseason, which stars Jocelyn Donahue and Joe Swanberg. So Mickey, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
No problem.
I'm going to jump into some questions real quick. I just want to start off by saying I'm a big fan of your show, The Core, which is now streaming on Shudder for everyone that hasn't checked it out yet. If you haven't, go check it out now. How did you get involved in that project, and will we ever see a new season?
So I got involved with it just through a general meeting. I met the guys at Up Rocks who were talking to Shudder about doing a show, and I guess they had seen some interviews that I had done, and I was like, I went and I met with them. I was like, yeah, I want to get covered in blood every episode. And I want to be the test, for all of these different, crazy stunts. So they were like, great. I guess no one else suggested that. So yeah, it was a blast. As far as a second season, I don't think so, unless everyone just like endlessly harasses Shudder. Then maybe.
Definitely need to get that going.
I think so. I had a fun time doing it. We wanted bigger, different guests and bigger set pieces, but you can always dream. I'm not going anywhere. I'd be happy to do it.
Yeah. Now, with you being the filmmaker, what are some of your favorite films that got you into horror and inspired you to create your own films?
So I think, the big ones for me, like if I have like a top three, probably it's like Rosemary's Baby for sure, the Blair Witch Project, and then, I don't really it's not really considered like a traditional horror movie, but I think Taxi Driver is very horrific, and I saw that when I was like 11 years old, and it was way too young. So, that kind of inspired me, but also the original John Carpenter's original Halloween, I think, is just perfect. So those are kind of like the big four.
Okay. Good picks. All right, so we start this playlist which we feature some of our guests' favorite songs. Could you share two songs that made an impact in your life and in your career to add to the list?
Oh boy, of just any songs in general?
Yeah, just anything.
Can we use the song that's in Offseason, Turn Around Look at Me by the Vogues?
There we go.
I think that would be pretty great. And then let's see. Oh God, Jesus, I'm usually so good at this. Let's do "Fool for a Blonde" by Roger Bartlett, which is in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I also use in my first film.
All right,
that's awesome.
Good picks.
Yeah, nice job on the fly with that, man. I'm impressed. Very good.
Hit movies, or hit songs. Sorry.
So, you have this very unique style with your filmmaking. It's actually so unique that if you look you up on Wikipedia, it actually says your style and certain themes. Yeah, really interesting. I get just so like a couple of the things they point out is kind of like your use of like the titles and just different approaches. So I wanted to kind of ask, like, where did you develop your techniques and how exactly would you describe a Mickey Keating film?
That's so funny. I kind of, it's like I am first and foremost just a film fan, and beyond that, like I love every kind of genre. And so I think I was really fascinated. These kind of like stylistic, in your face, kind of abrupt things kind of to me go back to like French New Wave and Godard, and even the way that like Scorsese and Thelma Schoonmaker just cut little moments in their movies. Like a particular one is like After Hours, when he is looking through the book and about burn victims, and it's just rapid cuts of like every single frame is a different close-up of a burn on a skin. And so like little moments like that, I think really kind of inspired me. And I guess if I could describe my own movies, they would be things that you very familiar kind of genre tropes kind of told in a completely left of center way. So you think you might know what you're getting going into one of my films, and then you end up being very surprised or completely infuriated.
Yeah, I think that sums it up. That's pretty good.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I had a big question about Offseason attached to that. The cinematography in this film was outstanding. The use of camera shots and angles was pretty good. And that atmosphere of just encompassing creepiness really got encapsulated.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to know, so the big thing was the people just standing with the eyes. And I was like, what the? And it was man, and it kind of happened a couple times, and I was like, wow, that really freaks me out. So I just the big question is, how did you come up with that specifically, and how did you really encompass the darkness on that island?
Well, first, thank you. That's that's a huge compliment. I think the uncanny nature of crowds kind of standing still has always really unsettled me, and it goes back to the Twilight Zone, the episode particularly called Elegy, where the astronauts land in that small town and everybody's frozen, is just so incredibly bizarre. And then also the idea of just being watched by a crowd. Antonioni's Red Desert is like a huge stylistic reference for this film. And there's just beautiful shots of Monica Vitti walking through the fog and just being watched by these very still people. So that's kind of where it came from. And then, we really took the effort to really plan the shoot of the film so that we could shoot as much of it at dusk as possible. So mathematically, we arranged the schedule and the storyboards to fit that, which is a huge pain in the ass. And but I think at the end of the day, we were also really helped too by Florida. The time we shot, for whatever reason, it was overcast every day, which is like when you write that into a script, you're destined for blue skies and sunshine. So we definitely got very lucky because most of that overcast is, if not all of it, is practical, which is crazy.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I just want to throw in a quick question then. What was the shooting schedule like if you had specific times of day to shoot?
Though I really I storyboarded the entire film. I actually have a cut of the movie of just my drawings. And basically what we did was me and my cinematographer, Mac, we broke every shot that we knew was going to be at the specific time of day. And every single day we would arrange a particular shot to run over and get it at magic hour at dusk. So we really kind of piecemealed the movie together in that way. So like the first, when I sent the drives back to my editor, it was like little tiny bits of scenes, scattered throughout the entire production. It was really chaotic.
You think you'll end up releasing a graphic novel with your storyboard?
Oh, God, mine aren't that good. Mine aren't like bummed in the nose or anything. They're way more like scratchy. But I was talking to RLJ about that, having that be a Blu-ray extra, but ultimately I was just like, this is kind of disappointing for everybody. I'm not that great of an artist.
Have you seen The Walking Dead? The comic book, the artwork was stick figure-esque.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, maybe I'll put it out for free so everyone can see something like that.
So we're from Rhode Island, and in your film Offseason, there's actually a shout out to Rhode Island because they reference Block Island. So I caught that really quick. And so the film basically is, it's about this island that this girl and her boyfriend, or they have some relationship there. Right. The island's supposed to be closed, but she begs to go on because she's been basically like asked to go on the island. So it's basically literally an off season of a touristy island. Mm-hmm. And when I caught that reference and watching the movie, I was like, I could actually picture this actually taking place on Block Island as well, or any of those like really tourist heavy islands that just go like really bare after the tourist season is done. I visited Block Island out of season, and it's like a ghost town. There's like the locals that live there. There's some, people that like sailors and come in and stuff like that. But it reminded me a lot of like what you created here.
That's funny. Yeah. And I've actually been to Block Island too, right? During the off season, and it's very, very creepy. I mean, I think that there's something inherently just bizarre about places that depend on tourists that are just like ghostly and empty. So I'm glad that you caught on to that, and and it's just like a great fun setting. And I liked the Block Island sound too. I thought that was a pretty fun movie. That
definitely. I was also going to mention though, there's also like the Lovecraftian part of this, which I'm not going to say right now because it's obviously a movie we want people to see, but there's a little Lovecraftian theme going on here, which is also another Rhode Island thing. So this was a really we're claiming this movie is what I'm saying. This is a Rhode Island movie now.
Two of my close friends are filmmakers from Rhode Island, Joe Begas and Josh Ethier. So their influence, definitely the Rhode Islandness is strong.
Excellent. So where did this idea about the off season come from, as far as like creating this film and everything?
Because I grew up in Florida, and a lot of times when we would skip school or whatever, it was an hour or so to the beach. And so there would be some times where we would go like during December or January and end up in these like these strange little towns where the beach was just completely empty. And I think what's so interesting and what I really wanted to do was kind of address just like decaying Americana. And I think there's nothing better than that, than like, Florida has so much Disney and Disney knockoffs that you see all these kind of like rip-off tourist traps everywhere that have all died or, are very ghostly. So I was like, that would be a great place to kind of build a creepy story. And not only that, the kind of juxtaposition of a town that depends on tourists, but they also hate outsiders, I think is very it's a great kind of subject to explore. So yeah, that's kind of where it built out. And then my desire to really make something that was like dreamy and surreal and more along the lines of like one of those old stories that you would read in some old book that was written back in the early 1900s, that's just like, oh, a weird ghostly thing that happened in the South. So those were kind of like all the jumping off points for them.
The other like part of this film that really stood out to me is the cast. So, I mean, you have Jocelyn Donahue, who listeners will know from House of the Devil, Joe Swanberg, who our listeners will know because I've literally talked about him every episode. Huge Joe Swanberg fan. But then you have Melora Walters and Richard Brake, who I have to tell you, the final scene with him was like one of the most impactful scenes. I feel like he was just on another level with his acting in this one. So I just was curious what it was like working with such a talented group of actors.
I think the thing that I really love is, and I think Richard's incredible, and that's, I met him at Sundance when they had 31 play, and I was just like, dude, like that is that opening scene is next level. So really, I mean, what's so great is just being able to sit back and kind of watch. I don't really, I don't like audition actors or anything like that. I've seen their work, and you kind of know like you're in good hands. So really, it was just a blast. And Swanberg is just, I love him, and he brings his own rhythm to the equation. And they were really great because when we shot, it was like 90 degrees and 90% humidity one day, and everyone was getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. And then it was like 30 degrees and 30-mile-an-hour winds the next day, and it was constantly raining, but everyone was just so sweet. So yeah, I knew from the very beginning, it's like Robert Altman kind of says, like, casting is 80% of a director's job, and that is 100% true on this one.
Yeah, so it's funny when you were talking about Florida. I used to live in Florida when I was a kid, and we had the same mentality where we lived. We loved taking tourist money, but we did not like the tourists next to us.
Right, sure.
So, do you get that living in Florida? Like, is that just a Florida thing?
Oh, for sure. Whereabouts in Florida are you from? Where did you live?
I lived in a little subsection of Kissimmee.
Oh, cool. Yeah, great. Yeah, I mean, it's like every summer, because I lived right near Universal and Disney, and it was just chaos. It's like all of a sudden there's just like a million people there, and you're like, all right, it's time for them to leave. So maybe maybe there's something in in my psyche that I'm just like, I hate tourists.
Well, we're claiming this as a Rhode Island movie, not a Florida movie. So
sure, right.
So what we're going to say about that. I would like to I found this interesting. The name of the bar was the Sand Trap, and that is also the LLC, Sand Trap LLC. And I'm curious. I had heard that name somewhere else in another horror movie. And is there a significance behind the name, the Sand Trap?
Not in like an homage or reference way. More just kind of the ominous nature of it's, I guess a sand trap is inherently, I guess in golf, is kind of inherently a bad thing. So it was kind of a little bit of just a wink and a nod to be like, there's danger afoot. And then with the LLC, I think we were just fucking around and trying to figure out what we were going to call the company that named it. So that's what we landed on because it's short. So really that's kind of the shorter answer is no, it's not a reference to anything particularly. And if it is, coincidence.
Purely accidental. I love
yes.
it. So I kind of want to throw out an older film of yours because I've seen a lot of your work. I'm a fan. I really liked Carnage Park.
Cool.
And I thought Carnage Park was great. And there was actually 2 questions there. Number one, where did you come up with the idea for Carnage Park? Because it was really graphic. And number 2, the main character, Ashley Bell, she was incredible. And she's been in a couple of your films. So how was it working with her? And you plan on working with her in the future? So it's a 3-part question. I'm sorry. 3.
Oh no, yeah, 100%. I think Ashley is brilliant, and I'm writing something for her right now. So yes. So I came up with Carnage Park because I really just wanted to do one of those like a mean 70s movie that was really it's like so many 70s horror movies is like so much buildup and then like 20 minutes of action. And I was like, we're gonna do this as an entire kind of like nonstop set piece in a way, and it was definitely an effort to kind of make a grindhousey also reference to like Peter Watkins' Punishment Park, which I think is fucking brilliant. He's just one of the most brilliant filmmakers of all time. And yeah, just to see if we could push the envelope and make something that was very, very brutal. And also the other movie, I guess, is Peter Bogdanovich's Targets, because that's just another great one. And I always said to Pat Healy, I was like, you could end up like the character in Targets, where you just climb up to, a billboard and start sniping people on the highway. So it was those kind of like 2 references that really were the jump. But then everyone says like Reservoir Dogs, and yeah, I guess there's like some blatant, moments that are Reservoir Dogs, and it's just because I love Tarantino.
There was, what, I got Texas Chainsaw Massacre out of it with the brothers and in the desert and stuff. I was like, oh my god. So
for sure, I mean, I adore Texas Chainsaw too, and The Hills Have Eyes. Like, as particularly, it's like I love Alex Aja as a director, and to me, The Hills Have Eyes remake is incredible. I was actually just reading the script today for some reason, and so yeah, it was kind of like all that kind of effort as a love letter to those kind of movies, for sure.
I'll take that.
So another one of your older films was Darling, and I kind of felt like that film had some parallels to this film, particularly with like the style, like I was talking about, those intertitles, female protagonist who seemingly like is going for this ride, but by the end of the film makes some strong choice that might not be what the viewers are expecting. Mm-hmm. But in Darling, you had Lauren Ashley Carter, who worked with you on this film, and then also another film, Pod. Mm-hmm. And she's like hypnotizing. Her eyes are just like, you're in a trance when you look at her. And it fits your style so well. And I didn't actually think of this until you mentioned Godard earlier. I kind of see like that influence of like Breathless in the female protagonist in Darling a little bit. So that made a lot of sense to me when you said that.
Oh yeah. That's. I mean, and I think she definitely has, Lauren for sure in Darling looks. We have a dress that's basically what Anna Karina wears in Alphaville, and so that was 100% my leaning into that kind of thing. And it's great that you brought that up, because I definitely see Offseason as a kind of sibling film to Darling, especially in the way that it's broken into chapters and it, the kind of more gothic, tragic elements to it, and not being quite sure what is real and what's kind of dreamy, dreamlike. And so yeah, it was definitely super fun to do something like that, but on a much bigger scale. I think Offseason costs like like 20 times what Darling cost or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like Darling's kind of like, I won't necessarily say it's claustrophobic, but it's very much in like, takes place mostly in one setting, except for the bar scene, obviously. And this one, she's got a whole landscape to
Right.
kind of traverse. And that actually plays a big part in this movie. It's like, she's literally running around for quite a while, as opposed to in Darling, where she's like in her own little world, you know?
For sure. And you know, it's so funny. I watched like Licorice Pizza and I was like, wow, those characters are running a lot. I could have made Jocelyn run even more.
Do you think you'll team up with Lauren Ashley Carter again?
Well, you know, I definitely want to work with all of the actors that I've worked with again. And it really is just what I think my duty as a director is to write things that are, you know, I would never want to make another Darling with Lauren, if that makes sense. In the same way, I would never want to make another Vivian with Ashley Bell. So it really would be a great effort to, you know, my dream is to have the Altman-esque ensemble with like 40 of my actors who have been in all my films. So it would be absolutely wonderful. And I'd love to see, you know, I'd love to see her in a bunch more movies because I think Lauren is an incredibly talented actor.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, definitely.
And I just also like just kind of looking at some of your older films, you know, just to give our viewers our listeners a sense of who you are and kind of the progression of films up to Offseason. I also want to bring up Psychopaths, which is probably your most up to date aside from Offseason.
Mm-hmm.
And that's definitely different than these films we're talking about. So do you want to kind of talk about that a little bit? Like what kind of influenced you to make that kind of film?
Yeah, well, you know, it's so funny because I wanted that movie to just be completely feverish, you know, and make a film that was not narrative driven and was totally more of an emotional kind of like trip and energy and a vibe. And I think when it came out, I think people definitely did not want that kind of movie. and we definitely got totally wrecked in the reviews, which is fine because, you know, I guess it was a learning lesson that, you know, if you ask an audience to go on this vibe like ride with you, you know, they want to be rewarded by not having a completely nihilistic ending, which is fine and great. But, you know, it was a total trip to make. We shot it literally 2 weeks after we premiered Carnage Park. So it was that whole section of my life was just like complete chaos. But I love Psychopaths. I hope more people check Psychopaths out. It's definitely, I feel like what I failed in doing was advertising it as it's not a slasher film that you're gonna get a story out of. It's a total trip. And so I wish that had been more forefront in the advertising and everything. But yeah, I would encourage anyone to check it out. If you like it, I'm great. If you don't like it, I have a bunch of other movies.
I'm trying to remember how you said it earlier when we asked you about how you would describe your own kind of movies, and you had said something about the viewer might not get what they want at the end or something like that. Like,
yeah,
that sums it up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's the fun thing because you know, I'm obsessed. Like, I think Harmony Korine, like Gummo, while it's like such a dirty feeling movie, is like that kind of just energy is something so thrilling. And so that was certainly the effort. And you know, maybe one day I'll make something like that again, or maybe not. We'll see.
What's it been like kind of having Offseason? You know, it's going to be coming out on Shudder March 11th, I believe is the date, correct?
It comes out in theaters and on VOD through RLJE on March 11th, and then it will come out a little down the line on Shudder.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right.
yeah.
So what's this whole process been like, kind of gearing up for its release and talking to people about it?
It's great. It's funny because, I mean, you know, we premiered the movie a year ago. So it really has been like this real slow build to the release. You know, obviously I'm like a little bit bummed that we're not, that I'm sure most people aren't going to see it in a theater just due to the times, right? Because this really was the effort to shoot like a theatrical big movie, but I totally get it and I understand. And so I'm just really excited for people to see it because, you know, Shudder and RLJ do a great job of getting the movie out there and getting eyes on their films. So the only thing I can definitely encourage people is like, please watch it as loud as you can, and don't watch it during the day or anything like that. But that's just the world that we live in. And so I had a conversation with another filmmaker the other day, where it's like, if these movies came out 15 years ago and the pandemic happened 15 years ago, they might not have a release. People might not know how to get them besides on a DVD or something. So I'm very, very thankful that we're in this time period right now, as opposed to earlier on.
And I agree. Watch this with the lights off, not during the
day. Definitely. So what do you have next planned for your upcoming projects? Do you have anything new?
I do. So I took it's like this one was probably 3.5 years since Psychopaths. So I'm definitely going to have more movies quicker. It was kind of just the effort. I did the core. And so that was like a fun time to just really rewire my brain and just be like, approach horror films as like, a fan again, instead of like being in the trenches of making a movie. And so I have a couple other projects that with Joe Swanberg that are very, very exciting. And then hopefully another big horror movie, but it's all contingent on whether we can do it within COVID, practicality, which is always a nightmare. But allegedly the pandemic is coming to an end. So
oh boy.
Well, I'm gonna get all my friends together. I'm gonna demand a season 2 of the core. So
wait, rally them. Yes, let's do it. I think it would be super fun. We know how it's gonna work now, and so we can get big set pieces. I said I wanted, if we did a second season, I wanted a Temple of Doom style set piece where I get my heart ripped out, and I wanted to get hit by a car. Those were my 2 requests.
Life goals, huh? Life goals.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so everybody definitely make sure you keep an eye out for Offseason. I think everybody's going to enjoy this. Watch it with the lights off. Get ready to go for quite the ride. And Mickey, thank you so much for joining us, man. This was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me. You guys are awesome. Let's do it again sometime.
Hey, you're always welcome, man. So everybody, thanks for listening and have a great night.